So I'm here with Amy Howard, property consultant at Neilson's Solicitors and Estate Agents in Edinburgh. And today we're going to chat over the recent BBC Panorama documentary on conditional selling, the undercover estate agent. But we're going to do it a bit differently. We're going to look at it from the Scottish perspective, which no one else seems to have covered really. And I think it is very different up here.
It is very different up here. I think the property industry profession is generally held in higher esteem here than it is south of the border. And I think that one of the things that Panorama failed to cover was the differences in the systems across the UK. I think it was a lot of scaremongering rather than useful advice. I think the documentary took quite a sensationalist look at the estate agency profession, and I think there are good reasons why Scotland is held in higher esteem, and we can take a look at those.
Could definitely look at it. I mean, we probably won't get the same clicks that they got by not being sensationalist, but we can try.
Yeah.
So obviously, for anyone that's not seen it, the BBC documentary looked at a couple of estate agents in England. I'll name them because they are named in the documentary. So it was Connell's and it was Purple Bricks, both for different reasons. Purple Bricks was sort of around about actually overvaluing homes to win the instruction, and then ultimately reducing that price. And it looked like there was incentives to reduce the price. Absolutely,
and incentives to advertise themselves as we'll sell your house for free. But actually all of the costs involved in, if you actually want an estate agency service, what that's going to be, and astronomically expensive it was turning out to be in many cases for some sellers.
Yeah, there was one, I think he paid £1,000 more than a friend.
Yeah.
And that was when he used the free estate agent
Yeah.
Purple Bricks. So there was that one. Then there was the one that we probably got the more insight into it was Connell's.
Yes, where the girl went actually undercover into the business. Yeah,
and that was sort of around about what they call as conditional selling, which obviously Connell's deny happened. The conditional selling of you'd go into Connell's to sell your home via their estate agency, and they would funnel you into using their in-house legal services, in-house financial services, basically. And they might only sell your property to people who are using those.
Absolutely. They covered a very good example of a home that could potentially have sold for a lot more money in the seller's pocket, but they chose to engineer a scenario where the seller, on their supposedly professional advice, accepted an offer lower than perhaps the end selling potential price could have been, because that buyer would then have used them to sell their home, and would use their financial services to take out mortgage and insurance, etc. So the value of that transaction was more important to Connell's than the outcome for their client.
Yeah, that was the one that was a cash offer, actually. I think it was a cash buyer interested, and it kind of just got buried in amongst what they called hot buyers at the end. Yeah, it was, it
was shocking. It was really, I say it was shocking. I worked in agency in London. It wasn't overwhelmingly surprising that they were doing that. I think it's quite common practice there when they have in-house financial services to favour people who will use their other services and the packages that they can offer.
Well, they touch on that. They touch on the deal going from being worth circa £3,000 to like £7,000 or something, because they get the kickbacks, commissions, whatever it may be, from those other services. So it's their bottom line. It's not the client's bottom line.
Yeah, and it should be, because the sale of your home is usually the sale of your biggest asset, and it is the one opportunity you get in life to maximise your capital tax-free for now. I'm sure at some point in the future the government will come after us for the money that we make out of a property sale. But for now, when we sell our homes, we get to keep that money. So sometimes the highest offer in a property sale isn't necessarily the best offer, but quite often the opportunity to take the highest offer means that you make the most money out of your asset, and your selling agent, your estate agent, should be doing everything that they can to make that happen for you. That their own bottom line shouldn't be a factor in who you sell your house to.
Yeah, no, 100%. So again, very England focused.
Yes.
Because it is different up here. And
Yes.
you have the benefit of having worked, like you say, down in London.
Yep.
And obviously work up here now. So from your perspective, what are the main differences up here and what does conditional selling look like in Scotland as opposed to down south?
Yeah, so I mean, it would be an absolute myth to say that we didn't have conditional selling here, and it would be a complete myth to say that the market here was perfect and that everybody, you know, does things by the book. What we do have up here, and particularly in Edinburgh with a stronghold here, is solicitor estate agents. The benefit of using a solicitor estate agent is regulation. We're regulated by the Law Society of Scotland, so we have certain rules and guidance that we have to work under, and that means that we are absolutely always acting in that client's best interests. So we are duty bound to act in their best interests. So if it meant that there was a lower fee to us for whatever reason, I can't think of an example as to right now as to what that would be, but it would never prevent us from taking an offer to a client, and it would never prevent us from making sure that they were fully aware of all of the circumstances behind the advice that we were giving them to take perhaps a slightly lower offer. Now, a scenario in which you might guide your client and advise your client to accept a lower offer would be when there is a chain-free cash buyer who's maybe offering a couple of grand less than a buyer who is subject to the sale of a property and then needs to organise mortgage finance as well. One of our partners here looks at those things as being banana skins on the road to a property transaction, and you want to take as many banana skins out of the road as possible. So if you've got a cash buyer who's not got a property to sell and hasn't got a mortgage to arrange, there's no banana skins on the road to having a house sold. If you've got somebody who's got a property to sell, that's one banana skin. If they've then got to arrange a mortgage, that's another potential banana skin, and that road becomes a little trickier to navigate. So it's about the clear advice and guidance that you would give to a client. It's about the motivations and who you're acting for. And I think one of the big differences between Scotland and England is that we are acting in the interests of a seller as a solicitor estate agent. If a buyer walks in here and wants to inquire about buying a property, then absolutely they'll be given first-class advice, they'll be given excellent customer service, but we won't be telling them that we'll negotiate on that offer for them. We'll be referring them to their own solicitor to get their own professional advice. And whilst we can recommend other solicitors that we know do a good job, we're not getting kickbacks or anything like that by recommending that solicitor to them, to say that this is somebody who can put that offer in for you and give you guidance. In England, if you walk into an estate agency and you say, hello, I'd like to buy a house, those negotiators' eyes are going to be lighting up because they're going to make commission out of you being their buyer. So whilst you're not paying them anything yourself, the seller is still paying their fee, you're the one who's going to get the customer service out of them because they want to sell you a house, because if they do that, they'll get their own individual commission on the sale. So they'll be guiding you as to what to offer. They'll be guiding you as to what to say to the seller, etc., even though the seller is the one who should be getting that service from them because the seller's paying their fees. And I think commission structures really, really muddy the waters of estate agency. I know that we quite often have very cheap estate agency fees in the United Kingdom compared to the rest of the world. You know, estate agency fees are typically anything from 1 to maybe 2% across the UK, whereas in other parts of the world you can be expecting to pay at least 6% on the sale of a property. Potentially it's the agency here is undervalued, but it's also under-regulated, and a lot of the agents are underqualified. There's no minimum entry-level qualifications to becoming an estate agent in the UK, and there's no professional regulation of that, continuing professional development, etc. And that's something that you, as a mortgage broker, who are highly regulated, must be very aware of, because estate agents are really the last the last post of lack of regulation. Solicitors are regulated, mortgage brokers are regulated, letting agents are regulated. It doesn't make sense that we're not.
No, it is interesting. I mean, literally before I came in here, I had to send a video post I wanted to do on something off to get checked.
Yeah.
Because of a regulation, it's a class of financial promotion. Not going into details of financial promotions, but even stuff like that, as a mortgage advisor, we have to get sign off.
Your home may be at risk if you do not keep up with your mortgage payments, etc., etc. Yeah.
Can't be misleading clients. Have to sort of protect them from foreseeable harm. All good things. But yeah, estate agents don't have regulatory bodies.
No, they don't. They have guidance, and they are subject to investigation by trading standards if they fall foul of the guidance that's published. But there's nobody making sure that they're keeping up with continual professional development. There's nobody making sure that they're keeping up with any relevant education points and certification that might be available or required. Now, as solicitor estate agents, we are regulated. We're regulated, as I mentioned, by the Law Society of Scotland, and many of us now also hold a qualification, the Law Society accredited certificate in property practice. So some of that regulation is changing, but in Scotland, we're very much ahead of the game. There's lots of consultations ongoing in England and Wales to bring in that regulation, and I do think that in the near future, we will see it become a thing. And Panorama maybe helps expose those practices that explain why we need regulation. But I still think they took a very sensationalist approach to explaining that, rather than saying, here's what you need to know about estate
100%.
agents.
My one of my mortgage advisor friends from down south, she's actually got a petition ongoing, again, more focused at England, to bring in the sort of certificate. So I say that word again. Certification. The same sort of certification that we have in Scotland for estate agents. So they have some form of continuous professional development. They have someone that's sort of just looking over the shoulder to make sure that they are following those sort of tenets that are laid out in terms of like helping their clients get the best possible deal for the client at the end of the day. So you touched on a couple of things. The first one, no, it's all right, it's all good. It's all good. The first one I wanted to touch on was obviously you mentioned about working solely on behalf of the seller.
Yeah.
And sometimes the highest offer isn't the best offer. And I see that a lot as a mortgage advisor. I work a lot with first-time buyers, and a lot of them sometimes get anxious of, what if I'm up against a cash buyer? And there's always the boogeyman of the cash buyer.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if they exist all that much, cash buyers, but what I tend to say to a lot of first-time buyers is, well, you don't have anything to buy.
Yeah, they've got to sell. So they've got a real flexibility on their timescale. I would always say that there's a lot of different currencies at play when selling a property, and money's not the only one. Time is vastly important to some sellers, and particularly if you've got a first-time buyer who's got their mortgage agreed in principle, the mortgage processing is going to be really straightforward, and they can move, therefore, very quickly, and that enables that seller to move on and buy the next step up the property ladder, the home that they want to get. They might be able to get away with a slightly lower offer than an offer from a buyer who also has to arrange a mortgage, but also has a property that they need to sell. Whether or not that property's on the market or under offer, a chain-free buyer, the first-time buyer, is always going to be the more attractive proposition. Having
been a buyer in a chain previously, I've seen that when everything fell apart for me, when our sale fell through, so then our purchase fell through. It can be disheartening. And then another thing you touched on as well was around about, obviously, if someone walks in here, says, I'm interested in this property here. Now, touched on it, but again, just for clarity, so a lot of firms in Edinburgh in particular have solicitors and estate agents, and they're a solicitor estate agent in the same office. But what I see in practice is that, so although they have in-house services, which is obviously something that was touched on in BBC, it does work differently here. So I see a lot from the firms that I refer clients to and work with, that if someone was to come in here, you guys wouldn't necessarily jump to be like, our solicitor over here can sort this out for you. You'd kind of say, do you have a solicitor in place?
Yes.
And it's all about kind of just making sure that you're looking after your client and that that buyer is looked after themselves as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So If they walked in off the street and they were a first-time buyer and they hadn't got a specific property in mind and they were just at the outset of their property search, we would always say to them, have you got a solicitor yet? And if they don't have a solicitor and they don't have a specific property in mind, i.e. one that we're selling, there is therefore no conflict of interest to say, come and sit down and have a chat with one of our solicitors and they'll talk you through the process. Now, this is one of the huge advantages to buying property in Scotland, is that you're getting that professional, impartial advice at the very outset. That solicitor will guide you through the things you need to do to make yourself as an attractive a buyer as possible, and how to get yourself in the best position ready to buy a property. But they'll give you local guidance on how the market's performing, what you might need to offer to be successful, what other sales in the area have gone for, and you've got that sort of comparable advice and that sounding board absolutely free of charge. Yeah. So I think a lot of people think, oh, solicitors are going to charge us by the minute for the work that they do. And that's absolutely not the case with conveyancing solicitors. And with us at Neilson's, you can put in notes of interest and you can put in offers on properties, and you can have that advice and guidance absolutely free of charge. There's nothing to pay until you actually secure a property and the legal work is then going ahead. So I think that's one of the big advantages to the market here. In terms of a buyer walking in and saying, oh, hi, I've seen that property in your window and I want to view it, there's a couple of questions that we will ask. Do you have a solicitor lined up, and have you got finance in place? How are you planning on funding the purchase? Because that's helpful for us to be able to give guidance to our seller on the quality of the buyer, the viewer that they're going to maybe proceed with. It's not because we want to sell them something, or it's not because there's any kickback for referrals, etc. But it's because we want to be able to give our seller the best picture of, this is a buyer, they're a first-time buyer, they've got a solicitor lined up, it's another ESPC member firm, better yet, a chartered ESPC member firm who's adhering to higher standards of customer service. And then you've got their mortgage is agreed. They've maybe told us that they're putting down a 25% deposit, and their solicitor has seen their agreement in principle, so we know that that's all going ahead. I think the difficulty arises with conditional selling when that buyer says, I don't have a mortgage yet, and we would say to them, would you like us to recommend a mortgage broker to you? Now, at Neilson's, we don't have any kickbacks or agreements or anything with mortgage companies, but I'm aware of other solicitor estate agents that do have that, and that should be disclosed to that person 100%. At that point. They should be told, if you then take your mortgage through this broker, we'll be given £50 or whatever it might be. And I think that there needs to be more awareness of what transparency there should be around those kind of partnerships or in-house service recommendations. Yeah,
because it's not an in-house service as such. Again, full disclosure, I have sold a property with Neilson's before. It was how I know Amy. And I have had clients referred from Neilson's, and I've referred clients to Neilson's. Yeah. So, but we have never had any kickback, anything like that. It is purely, as far as I always set it up, a service-based discussion. It's
who would you recommend? Who's going to do a good job for you?
Well, no, I totally agree. So for me, it was always just like, do you have a solicitor? No. They weren't buying a property with Neilson's, or they weren't looking at a property that was listed by Neilson's. I was like, cool. These guys are great. They'll get you sorted out. Avoid all conflicts, because I'm not affiliated to anyone in the party. The Neilson solicitor was not affiliated, and they were buying from another estate agent within Edinburgh. So there was 3 individual parties in that conversation. And likewise, that's been the same when clients have been referred to me from you guys. It's like, we've had someone come in, first-time buyer, they haven't spoken to anyone about a mortgage, could you help them out? And it's always that, could you help them out?
Could you help them out? Yeah. And quite often they might say to us, oh, we've spoken to the bank. And I think there's sometimes a lack of knowledge of, well, you might get a better deal if you go to a broker, because there will be deals that are exclusive to the brokers that the bank can't offer you directly. So if you go to your bank, you might be offered a mortgage product, and you might be given an agreement in principle, and that would be great. and that might be what you need to do to start your property search. But actually taking the time to speak with a broker who can search the whole of the market for you and say, yeah, your product with your bank's brilliant, but actually there's a slightly better product or a better rate available to you, or whatever it might be, by going down this route. And yeah, there might be then fees attached to that there might not be, but you would always, and because you're regulated, would have to disclose all of those. Yeah, right at the start.
Right in what's called my initial disclosure document. It goes out right at the start, transparent, all the fees that we charge. And ironically, same for the legal fees and the things, the mortgage fees, so the fees I charge for the work I do and the fees the conveyancers charge for the work they do are actually some of the lowest fees in the whole process. The estate agency fees tend to be the highest part.
Yeah.
Which kind of puts the whole thing at its head in terms of the two most regulated parts of the journey.
Yeah.
Aren't really charging
the
you.
most expensive part. Now, the other thing I think to be clear on as well is that you cannot buy or sell property in Scotland without the services of a solicitor. Technically in England, if you weren't organising a mortgage, you could do your own conveyancing. You could potentially do it all yourself. You'd probably want a law degree. But
having looked at title deeds and stuff recently, it's not something I ever want to have to look at again.
But you technically could, whereas in Scotland you absolutely need that solicitor. So getting a good one at the outset, whether you're a buyer or a seller, is a really good place to start, because they'll be able to guide you through that entire process, and they'll be able to see you through the entire process as well. Which is, again, one of the benefits of using a solicitor, estate agent who does estate agency and conveyancing all under one roof. You've got that one main point of contact overseeing the sale of your property and potentially the purchase of the next property as well, making sure that you've not sold your property with nowhere to go, or making sure that you've not bought another property without the sale of your property concluding to be able to pay for it. So there's a big advantage to using an in-house legal service, but there's no conflict of interest there, because the interest is all on the seller. It's all in the seller's best interest. We're doing your estate agency and we're doing your legal work, and we have one common goal, which is to act in the best interests of that seller.
No, I've seen it with you guys before, having a client that I was referring in, and they actually ended up looking at Neilson's property, and the email was pinged back saying, look, send them to someone else because this is one we are selling.
Yeah.
Just avoid conflict. And it's great when you see stuff like that. You're like, brilliant. That is people looking out for their clients and their customers, first and foremost. So obviously we've touched on the differences up here. A lot of differences. They're quite minute, but they make a big difference.
They're minor, but overall they make a huge difference. I always say that the two systems have more in common than that which divides them, I think the quote goes. But I think the key thing is that solicitor estate agency model that gives you that level of regulation.
Because you've got the oversight. So I'm not going to go into individual examples of like stuff that we've seen, because we can all touch on like conditional selling we've seen.
Oh yeah.
What I will say is there are firms in Scotland who are affiliated with Connells, who were mentioned in the BBC Panorama. I'm not going to name the firm names because they weren't mentioned in the documentary, so there's no proof or evidence that they have done conditional selling. I'll just leave it at that in terms of what I've seen with some firms.
Yeah, I think, and I don't think it necessarily is just them as a group either. I think you can see it quite often, even regrettably within solicitor estate agents, that you might get the practice, as they exposed on the Panorama documentary, of somebody overvaluing a property in order to be able to win the instruction to get the listing, because then they've got that seller captured and they can just manage their expectations later on. And we see it quite commonly here that an estate agent will overinflate a value, and then the home report surveyor will go out to do the home report and the value will come back much lower than that seller had been told that home report value would be, because there was no comparable sales evidence to justify the higher value. But by then they've maybe paid some upfront costs, they're stuck with that agent, that's who they're selling with. And it means the whole transaction's got off on the back foot, because that seller is probably then not trusting their agent going
Just
forward.
leaves a bad taste.
Exactly. So I think the thing to say to consumers, to say to those who might like to sell their home, is that when an agent's giving you a valuation that maybe seems unrealistic compared to other valuations that you've heard, ask them to justify it. They should be able to show you the comparable sales evidence that they're going to use and that the surveyor is going to then use to be able to justify why the home report value is quite that high. And if they can't do that, then it's not real. You might like to think that your house is worth 50, 100 grand more than every agent told you it would be. But if they can't justify it, it's not real. The agent to trust is the one that comes out with the comparable sales evidence prepared in front of them, talks you through those comparable sales, the similarities, the differences, how the surveyor might view that content. You can often, particularly within the Edinburgh market, have a huge discrepancy between what the home report value of a property was and what the end selling price of that property was. And a good agent will know both of those numbers to be able to say to you, well, the home report value on it was 350 and it sold for 400,000. And that does not mean that the surveyor is going to value your identical house next door at 400,000. They're maybe going to come up a bit from the 350, taking that sale into account. But ultimately, you need to look at how that works for marketing strategy and the message that it sends to the public as well. So I think that's something to be aware of, is that practice of overvaluing can happen here. And the other thing I'm very aware of is that conditional selling happens here. And you sometimes find that when the estate agent is doing the viewings for the property, rather than a viewing agent or the seller themselves, their aim of doing that is to meet the buyer who might be their next hot meal. That might be where they're getting the sale from, or the referral fee from the mortgage broker from, or a kickback from a solicitor's firm for placing them with them as a client. And there is a horrible practice of estate agents saying that we won't take your offer to our seller, or our seller isn't interested in looking at your offer unless you agree to sell your house with me as well. And I think that consumers should be really aware that if that practice happens to them, it's not right. It is against the rules and regulations set out by trading standards, and that they should complain. They should go to their trading standards office and make them aware of that. They also are duty bound to take any offer that is submitted to them to the seller of that property for their consideration. Now, you might put in an offer on a property and the selling agent may think that's such a ridiculously low offer, my client's never going to accept that. But we still have to take that offer to the seller and say, I've got an offer for you, it's come in, we're not going to recommend that you take it or accept this offer, but I am duty bound to put this offer in front of you and let them know what it is. And if that offer happened to be from somebody that they really liked, and if that offer happened to mean that they could then buy the house of their dreams, then it's up to them as a seller. Ultimately, it's 100% the seller's decision who they sell their offer to and what offer they accept. But we're there to make sure that the decision that they make is as well informed as it can possibly be, and that they've got the full background picture, guidance and advice on whether or not we think they should accept that offer.
Yeah, totally. And it's not just restricted to sort of the estate agency market per se. Where I see more of it, and it could just be my clients, to be fair, but I see a lot more of it with new build developments.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really risky area for it, that a new build developer will maybe have partnerships set up with a firm of solicitors and a partnership set up with a firm of mortgage brokers, and they will try and sell you those services along with a house.
Yeah. Well, what happened to me, we were saying just before, and I won't name the firm names, but when I bought my new build home, the one just sold, I was handed a pack with the new build developer's name at the top, a mortgage firm's name, and a solicitor firm name, all on the front, and that was the recommended package. That was recommended in terms of how I should buy this house. Yeah. By the seller in the development. When they found out what I did. Well, as soon as they found out what I did, I was like, oh, take it that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
a huge conflict of interest, because that's a solicitor that's been put in place by the seller to act for the buyer. Now, that's not okay. The buyer should be having their own independent advice. Now, it's great if a new build company will recommend a firm and say, you know, this firm of solicitors are good local, good reputation, we would recommend that you get a quote from them and decide if you want to use them. But that decision should be on the purchaser, like which solicitor am I going to use, and the condition of them buying that house should have nothing to do with their choice of solicitor. Sometimes we get an offer in and it's from a firm of solicitors that we know will be difficult to work alongside or slow to respond to things, and we think, oh, here we go. But if our client wants to accept that offer, then that's their decision, and we'll take their instructions on that and guide them through the process the best that we can. But we shouldn't be coercing people into which firm of solicitors they use or which firm of brokers they use. That's not right.
No, I have the same with mortgage lenders sometimes. When the certain lenders come out top in terms of rate or whatever it might be for that client, there's sometimes always a heart-sinking moment of, oh, not that lender.
Not that lender with their underwriters.
Yeah, but it's my job to get it through, just like it's your job to kind of get the sale through or the purchase through. That's kind of, we're there to help our clients at the end of the day. We can tell them, we can say, look,
this could be a bit sluggish.
Yeah, well, exactly. But that's our job to manage it. Cool. So what I want to sort of finish up on is sort of tips you would have from the experience, because you've experienced both systems.
Yeah.
So tips that you'd have for sellers and tips you might have for prospective buyers to try and help them avoid conditional selling in the first place if they can, or how to handle it if it crops up. I always say to clients, get a couple different quotes.
Absolutely.
You don't have to use anyone I'm referring you to. I tend to go with if you like them and you have a chat with them, then great. But if you don't gel with the person I'm referring you to, you're going to be dealing with them for like 12 weeks. So maybe don't use them if you don't like them. And I apply the same to me. If someone doesn't like me after a conversation, then maybe I'm not the person to work with.
And and maybe it comes down to that sometimes. And that was something that we took consideration of in London agency, in an office where you've got 4 negotiators maybe, as we had, all working for the same goal, and there's a buyer that you think, I really don't gel with this person. The idea of driving them around and showing them 15 different properties and they're never going to take my advice on any of it, it would maybe be better if they dealt with somebody else. And I think maybe that's good agency actually, to say, okay, this is not going to work, this isn't going to be the right fit. But I think my sort of top tips in choosing who to work with when wanting to sell your home is, first of all, check if they are regulated. Law firms and therefore solicitor estate agents are bound by the rules of the Law Society of Scotland. So you've got that framework for ethical practice and accountability and client protection in place. Estate agents have to sign up to some sort of ombudsman scheme, but it's not the same as being regulated. Ask who they work for. Like, a good estate agent should be absolutely clear. Are they self-employed and therefore being paid commission under the umbrella of a firm? Are they employed by the firm? How do they work? How are they paid? Are they on a commission structure? I know one firm, their valuers receive a cash bonus for every property that they list. So, that again, that should be disclosed. Who they work for, how are they being paid? Are they trying to sell you other services? Be cautious on that. They should be transparent about fees, commission, any kickbacks, any targets, or what their key responsibilities are. So, asking that is important. I think looking out for conditional selling, as we mentioned, if somebody's saying to you that your offer won't be considered unless you agree to use their services or their mortgage advisor or whatever else it might be, that practice is highly unethical, and in some cases it's illegal. So that's something to be aware of.
The one I see a lot is, or I don't see it, because you never ever see it in writing. Ever see it in writing. Try and get it in writing. Anyone listening to this, try and get it in writing if you experience it.
Yeah.
But what I'll hear from clients is, I've been told that I need to speak to their mortgage advisor to get a financial health check done. And it's like, why?
Why? I can provide that for you.
I'm an independent mortgage advisor. You have your mortgage in principle. It's the same.
Yeah.
So you see that a lot as well for people going down the mortgage route.
I think the reason that they do that is to put them in front of their broker, in their in-house estate agency broker, and then that broker will maybe find them a better deal than the one that you found them, because maybe the rates have changed a bit that day, or maybe they've not actually looked at it in a huge amount of detail, and then they see that as an opportunity to poach your client.
Oh,
so
100%.
they're not doing it for the financial security of their seller to know that they're accepting a good offer.
And it could be they've not even looked at the circumstances of the client. So they might say that lender A has got a rate of whatever it is today, and the one that I've mentioned in recommendation or in conversation is different. But I maybe haven't looked at that lender because I know that they can't fit with that lender for whatever reason.
Yeah, self-employed, or who knows
whole
what
host
it
of
could
different
be.
things. Yeah, generally speaking, your mortgage advisor's working in your best interest. They're not trying to put you somewhere for to a more expensive deal for no reason. And a good mortgage advisor would actually lay that out in a chat with the client anyway. They would say, the reason I'm recommending this lender over this lender is ABC.
Yeah.
You have to do that. The regulation says we have to do it.
Transparency again is really important. And I think asking if you're meeting an estate agent to consider selling your property, asking them for evidence of their past performance, like what have they been selling in the area, look beyond flashy marketing and cheap fees, ask them how many properties they've sold recently, what their average time to sale is, how close to home report value they're achieving, and just get that sort of background and statistics from them, and check out their online reviews. Like the things that people write about estate agents and solicitors and mortgage brokers and everybody else on Google and Facebook isn't controlled by them. They have no, we have no influence over what people write about us online. And, those reviews don't lie. So
100%. I mean, I'm sitting here with all 5-star reviews. I'm quite lucky.
There we go.
There we go.
5 stars. I think we're 4.9.
Oh, there you go.
But I think as well that you can tell a lot about the quality of a firm from how they have responded to a review as well. You can kind of read through the lines of a bad review as to, why that's been written. Was the firm really at fault? What have they done about responding to that?
It's, mistakes will happen. So it's how do you deal with the mistakes?
And how they handled them.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's kind of like restaurant reviews as well, because some people are like, I didn't like the food. 3 stars. It's like,
turns out it was seafood and you're allergic to shellfish.
Yeah, so there's elements of that in their reviews, but definitely check reviews. Facebook can be a kind of poison chalice in some regards, but it can be great to find out a kind of community take on firms, etc. Because you could just say, what do people think of this firm, or what firm would you recommend? Now, you usually get people sort of bombarding the post, pros and cons for each side, but you'll be able to get a kind of...
Yeah, I would again, in that instance, look for transparency as well. If they are friends with, related to, or employed by the person that they're recommending, like it's maybe not quite the same as somebody who says, speak to my colleague such and such at Neilson's, they'll do a really good job for you. Check out our online reviews, and whatever, somebody else might jump on the post and recommend them too. But yeah, be very wary of that. I think there's a lot of that, particularly with these sort of online agents who are kind of employed under a franchise or whatever it might be, getting their friends and family, or pile on this Facebook post and recommend me.
No, I see it with mortgage firms and stuff as well. I say that my family always recommend me on one of the ones as well, and I'm like, cool, fair enough. But like, everyone's got the name Aitken, so it's not like it's not like it's
very transparent. Thanks, Mum.
When you got like Jim Aitken recommends Aitken Financial Services, you're like, cool.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of those things. But totally take everything with a pinch of salt.
Yeah.
Which is it's a bit sad, because it's meant to be a really exciting time selling and buying a home, regardless of what bucket you're in. If you're buying or selling, it's meant to be fun and exciting. But it ends up being really stressful, and this just adds another one of those steps in terms of making it more stressful and more work to do, when really, if you're upsizing to your dream family home, that should be your focus. That should be cool, I'm really excited about that.
Absolutely. And that's something I'm really proud of in a lot of our reviews, is that clients comment that we took what they thought was going to be quite a stressful process and actually made it really enjoyable, actually made it really fun. And I think that takes enthusiasm. It takes the love of what you do for a living. And, that makes a huge difference. So I think that, again, is something to look for when you're shopping around for who you want to use. who do you meet that says, yeah, this is going to be exciting and this is a cracking house and we're going to do this, that and the other and it's all going to work, and they give you a clear overview of the whole picture, rather than somebody who comes in and does the old, ooh, this'll be a tricky sale or whatever it might be.
The old tradesman. Had a lot of that in my house recently. But yeah, the whole, the cost, yeah. But yeah, you want basically, that, I think that's great advice. You want to look for somebody that's enthusiastic, that you'll gel with, because it's not a short process by any means. You're going to be speaking to that person on and off for probably at least 12 weeks.
Yeah.
And that goes for your estate agent, your solicitor, your mortgage advisor, whoever it is in the process you're dealing with. Make sure you actually get on with them to a degree, because if you don't, the trust won't be there, you're not going to take the advice, and no one's going to have an enjoyable experience.
And that you can get hold of them as well.
Yes.
I would say that's fundamental too, that if they've given you a direct dial or a contact number, try it. Try getting through to it. See if you get hold of them quickly and easily, because that's definitely a bugbear that we hear about, is that you meet someone and then you never hear from them again, and you've been passed off to somebody else in their admin team or whatever it might be. So yeah, give them a shout, see if you can get hold of them.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Well, I really appreciate your time, Amy. So hopefully...
You're really welcome. It's been a great chat.
No, it has. Hopefully it's useful for everyone else as well. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.